Long story short, most of my friends have blocked me, but I still want to talk about the bear. So I'm going to talk about it with you guys. Mainly talking about Carmen, but also talking about other stuff, like how I was absolutely blown away by seeing this photo of Bradley Cooper from the movie Burnt and how it made an appearance in the season 3 finale of The Bear. I'm just going to go ahead and take this to a 10 by saying that this photograph making an appearance isn't just a cute reference or something paying homage to other media depicting the chef life. No. This has to mean that the 2015 movie Burnt and the series The Bear take place in the same cinematic universe. I'm a little hurt that we didn't get to see Jon Favreau's character from the movie Chef make an appearance. That way these two properties could also share the same cinematic universe as this masterpiece. But they probably made the right call with that one, because Jon Favreau's character would probably be like, why is Ramsey Michelle here? Because if you didn't already know, Oliver Platt, who plays Uncle Jimmy, also plays the food critic in Chef. Anyway, I'm specifically focusing on Carmen Anthony Berzatto, also known as Carmy. And if you're Richie, you may also know him as Carmen has had a rough year, and we're gonna analyze his inevitable downfall in season 3. But in order to better understand all of that, we have to go back. We have to go all the way back. Carmen grew up in Chicago, a place where they have the Cubs and a place where everything is tinted blue. He grew up the youngest of 3 with not the best parents. He didn't know his father well enough to miss him, and his mom makes it really difficult for me to finish watching episodes. Carmen was out here suffering from a stutter, while his older, more charismatic brother had the social capabilities and charm that Carmen was lacking. This is one of the many reasons why Carmen looked up to his older brother. And when growing up in this incredibly dysfunctional household, one of the only things that Carmen liked doing was cooking with his brother. Like the beef braccioli that Mikey would prepare every Sunday. The cooking was the calm in the storm for Carmen, which is why he always wanted to open up a restaurant with Mikey. But Mikey was not gonna let that happen because he wanted better for Carmen, explaining why Mikey never let Carmen work at the beef. Carmen didn't know that this was the real reason, so he left to go prove something to his brother. And then a whole bunch of stuff happened. I think it's a good time to talk about today's sponsor, the people helping make this video possible. And that would be no one other than BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service that is 100% online. It is very convenient. Therapy is an incredible tool, and I honestly believe that everyone should have accessibility to a therapist. And if you're wanting to seek out a therapist nowadays, it can be pretty challenging finding the right fit. But BetterHelp is out here with 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists, which is a really big number. And I already mentioned that it's online, meaning you can talk to your therapist over text, video chat, voice call, whatever you feel comfortable with. And if you're sitting over there and you're like, wait a second, that sounds pretty toasty, but how do I get started? All you gotta do is answer this questionnaire talking about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way BetterHelp can look in their network of 30K and then pick the most compatible one. So you end up getting the most personalized therapist. My favorite part is that you can contact your therapist literally whenever, 24/7. And if you're like me and you're trying to have more structure in your life, you can schedule live sessions whenever it's convenient for you. And all of this is a process that BetterHelp's trying to make easier. So if you feel like your therapist may not be the right fit for you, there is nothing to worry about, because you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With therapy that can exist on your phone, you're getting more accessibility and you're getting more of an affordable price. So if you want to begin that journey with BetterHelp, just click on this link in the description below. And then what's going to happen is that you're going to get 10% off your first month. So go check it out for yourself. Now let's get back to Carmen. Oh, and just to make everyone's lives easier, anytime I'm talking about where something's at on the timeline, I'm going to refer to it as before opening or after opening in relation to the opening of The Bear. So during 5BO, Carmen comes back home from Copenhagen after learning all about how to be a fancy chef. And at that point in time, he's coming back like once a year. Mikey not letting Carmen be part of the beef is why Carmen kind of felt like him and Richie were with him when they were trying to set him up with Claire Bear, because in this particular instance, Mikey was kind of wanting Carmen to set up shop in Chicago by dating Claire Bear, but at the same time, he wasn't letting Carmen be part of the beef and he wasn't indulging his whole restaurant idea. And on top of all of that, Mikey was dodging his calls.
Kelly, to pick up the phone?
So it was a very confusing time for him. As we've seen in season 2, episode 7, Fishies, Mikey was suffering from his own issues. Characters like Marcus even claim that Mike was amazing. He was like an amazing guy, but he's also a little out of his mind. And this instability was best represented by the fork incident. Mikey living with his mom didn't help his situation, as Donna seemed to be a major stressor, and the pressure of running the beef also didn't help. Mikey resorted to taking a bunch of money from sketchy people. He was also self-medicating, and during this time he became addicted to painkillers. Then he had the idea to do stuff like drug dealing in the back alley. All of this stacked up over time and pushed Mikey to the point where he, and I quote, blew his head off on the State Street Bridge. Long story short, Mikey was on a downward spiral, and he didn't want to drag Carmen down with him. So a couple years before opening, Mikey stopped letting Carmen in the restaurant and cut him off entirely. This is why Carmen couldn't step foot in Mikey's funeral, not going in out of a lack of understanding and lingering resentment. Before Mikey ended everything, Carmen was looking to his brother for validation, but he never received it, and the more that Mikey ignored him, the more Carmen sunk into this quest of achieving excellence. During this pursuit, Carmen ends up working for David Fields, also known as Carmen's arch nemesis. David was introduced to us in the first season. We only got to see him for like as long as we got to see the bear during the prologue, and ever since that moment I kept asking myself two questions. Number one, when is David Fields coming back? And number two, when is the bear gonna be brought back into the story? Like, when is the literal bear going to show up to the restaurant and challenge Carmy to a fight of fights? And for those of you going like, Bryce, stop, we're not doing this again. The bear isn't a literal bear, it's just a metaphor. Well, you know, the series isn't over yet. There's still time for the bear to emerge, so. Anyway, David sucks. He's a bunch of negative adjectives, and he's also a man who hates black pepper for some reason.
Hates black pepper for some reason.
Speaking as someone who once deep fried a Hot Pocket, I don't know why he would hate black pepper so much and hold a grudge against it like it scratched your Dave Matthews Band vinyl. The only reason I could find is that sometimes in French cuisine, white pepper is used to better fit the whole aesthetic of the dish. Like when it comes to white sauces, for example, they use white pepper instead of black pepper because they don't want to ruin the whole simplicity of the dish's appearance. I mean, it could be taste as well. Black pepper is hotter than white pepper, and white pepper tends to be more mild and have an earthier flavor to it. I feel like I'm getting sidetracked again. The bear is often depicting generational trauma, as well as other forms of psychological trauma like abuse or grief. Carmy's family inadvertently instilled this belief into him that he doesn't deserve anything good. This belief was later perpetuated and worsened by David Fields. In the eyes of the TV show, life can feel out of control and it can feel like the other shoe is bound to drop. However, food, whether it would be preparing or serving it, food seems to be an attempt at controlling the chaos, something that can combat the trauma and something that can bring balance and order to the hardship. Take forks, for example. We see forks used for something chaotic, like Mikey throwing them at Uncle Lee's face, because Uncle Lee was a little scumbag, and he wasn't their uncle. He was just a guy that was getting with Donna and trying to steal money from her. Anyway, we see forks used for something chaotic. Then in the next episode, Forks, we see the fork treated with care and attention at Ever. The treatment of the fork and the attention to detail brings balance and harmony to something that was previously chaotic, which is why the initial edit of Richie cleaning the forks matches the same energy and editing style as Mikey's breakdown.
Yeah, make it about you. Make Christmas about you.
We see something similar happening in season 2, when Carmy wants Marcus to focus on making a cannoli, as Carmen is trying to take cannolis, something that was associated with a very traumatic event in his life, and reassociate it with something on the bear's menu, associating it with his creativity and passion, so that he can, in a sense, take it back and further bring balance to that aspect of his life. For that reason, what Carmen's doing is therapeutic for himself and the other people that he serves. And this is something that's later discussed as Luca and Sid also talk about repurposing their trauma into the dishes they prepare.
You kind of repurposed your trauma then, I guess.
Garrett even makes the comparison between hospitals and restaurants, saying that there's a reason both of them share the word hospitality, which is why we are constantly seeing this juxtaposition of Carmen working in the kitchen and Claire working in the hospital. With Carmen, he was set on fixing the bear, something that was from the beginning, just like his own family and personal life. In terms of mentors, we have one really cool one and one that just sucks. I like that we had more FaceTime with Chef Terry this season because she really did set the precedent here. During the 30 minutes of meditation that was the start to season 3, Carmen starts yelling at Luca from the stress and the pressure.
Chef, let's go. Got it.
Sort of emulating what his mother would do. Terry immediately shuts him down and makes him act more civilized.
Chefs, quiet.
By the way, I guess we know who Luca was talking about back in season 2 when he claimed that somebody was like eons better than him.
He was better than me. Much better than me. He worked harder and faster than I ever could.
Terry recognizes Carmen's potential, and instead of doing this, her way of pushing Carmen is sending him to Copenhagen so he can further expand his skill set. Copenhagen is also a place where Carmen truly feels at peace. And now for the other shoe. After Carmy's mom did the classic, I'm gonna crash a car through the front of the house, and after his brother kept rejecting his ideas for a new restaurant, Carmen further pushes himself to become the best. But unfortunately, he runs into someone who's gonna exploit that to the furthest possible point it could go. He goes to stay on the couch of his cousin Michelle and her husband Stevie as they live in New York. Michelle being the one who kept telling Carmy to keep going. This is when Carmen ends up working for Chef Fields. David exploits Carmen and mercilessly pushes him to the point where he receives panic attacks and ulcers and all that good stuff. During the season 3 confrontation, David tells Carmen that he doesn't think about him.
I don't think about you.
And I think he was 100% telling the truth. Like, he obviously holds a grudge against Carmen for the whole screwing up his dish, which is why he disrespectfully begins the conversation with,
How you doing? Ragazzo?
But David moved on. I don't believe that he was keeping tabs on Carmen. Anyone in that room could make the assumption that you achieved greatness simply by being in that room. David sees it as a good thing to strip everything else away in your life, and in return receive confidence, ability, and leadership, and all these words. David claims that his methods, even though extreme, work, and that as a result, Carmen has become excellent.
You got excellent.
At this moment, by the way, Carmen finally gets some form of validation. The voice in his head that has been telling him that he's terrible and that he will never be good enough. The voice that was reaffirming all of his fears and insecurities has now just confirmed that Carmen has reached excellence.
Excellent.
Almost finding the kind of validation that he wanted from his brother.
I just wanted him to be like, good job.
But I feel like what the show is trying to say right here is that Carmen would have achieved the greatness if he didn't work for Fields, if he didn't go through that hellscape. After all, Carmen did have the drive and the skills before entering Fields' restaurant, and they imply that David's methods weren't the best. Luca claims that Fields used to be one of the best chefs.
He's the worst and one of the best chefs in the world.
Used to be one of the best chefs in the world.
Emphasis on the phrase used to be. Something that David's doing somehow stunted his growth and career. His methods worked against him. In the season 3 finale, the chefs at Carmen and Sydney's table talk about having a bad boss who unlocked the culture that you choose to cultivate by going against everything that they did. Kind of like avoiding the same mistakes that your parents made. Carmen carries over aspects of David's management style into the bear, whether it be something as simple as the green tape.
This just drives me crazy.
Or his rigorous standards. Heck, bringing back generational trauma for a second. In season 2, we witnessed Donna in the kitchen trying to cook food for everyone. As she was on the edge of having a breakdown, people like Carmen had to tell her to calm down. Just like this moment with Sid in season 3.
I need you to calm down.
Then Donna proceeds to push everyone away. And later on, Carmen is seen doing the same exact thing. Carmen lets the pressure and stress build up, so the kitchen is the place where he releases said stress and dumps his trauma on everyone else around him, thus pushing everyone away. When Carmen was trapped in the freezer, Rich even makes the comparison that he is Donna.
Oh yeah, I'll get you the out of there, Donna.
Carmen's dysfunctional family life bleeds into his own personal life and work life. His own servers quit the restaurant because they didn't want to work in a dysfunctional kitchen. By the end of season 3, Carmen has successfully made the bear devoid of joy. People are saying that this season feels colder, like it's lacking the warmth that we found in the previous 2 seasons, and I'm like, yeah. That's the point. The pressure is on Carmen to make the bear work, and Carmen was able to achieve such excellence through David's methods. So in his mind, David's methods are the only way that he knows how to be excellent. But as the show is implying, these methods may not be the best way. Carmen's mindset is negatively affecting the characters around him, thus changing the tone of the season. Just look at the difference in energy when Carmen is getting shown how to prepare the chicken versus the energy of him showing Tina.
Why do they call it the Pope's nose?
The Pope's nose.
Yeah.
So it's funny. The story, there's a couple stories, but the one I like the most, or the one I've heard the most, was a time.
Why they call it the Pope's nose?
Well, what's it look like to you?
Carmen has David's subtract rule ingrained into his mind. When Carmy is stuck in the freezer, he refers to his life with Claire as bull. The same exact way David did during their conversation.
You wanted to be excellent, so you got rid of all the bull.
But really, David and everything that he stood for was bull. So to me, the whole subtracting thing feels like Carmen is just subtracting that humanity, subtracting the people he views as peace in the chaos, deluding himself into thinking that he doesn't deserve amusement or enjoyment, and that anything beyond cooking is just a complete waste of time. During subtracting time, Carmen is preventing Sid from feeling like she has a strong say in any of the dishes that her and Carmen are preparing. Like, it gets to the point where he completely rolls over all of her suggestions. Sid is justified in her hesitation with signing the partnership agreement and potentially joining Adam. The constant fighting and lack of professionalism between Richie and Carmy is completely unacceptable. People like Adam Shapiro over here know that the place is a mess with Richie and Carmen yelling at each other, which is why the review isn't going to be amazing. A lot of it's going to be criticizing the atmosphere because everyone else has been criticizing the atmosphere this entire season. Terry seems to be the antithesis of David. When we see Terry at the end of season 3, she's closing her restaurant because she wants to go to parties. She wants to meet people, to live life.
Andrea Terry loves this.
Terry places more significance on remembering the people than remembering the food. And her words reign true in terms of how we see some of Carmen's memories. The first solid memory we get of Mikey is them preparing food together. But the main focus of the scene is Mike telling a story. Carmen, over here, is stuck wrongfully subtracting and preventing people like Sid from growing. So currently there's a lot of parallels between Carmen and David's relationship and Sid and Carmen's relationship. Take the blood orange incident, for example. Carmen knew that his scallop with blood orange and zucchini was way better than whatever fennel garbage that David was trying to push. So in a small act of defiance, Carmen sends out the blood orange instead of the fennel. Back in season 1, Sid admits that the best meal she ever had was Carmen's.
The moment the semester finished, I bought a one-way ticket to New York. I spent every single dollar I had just eating every single place that I could think of. One of those places was the best meal I ever had.
The dish that was the best meal she ever had was the blood orange plate, a plate that she was never supposed to have been served. And this is kind of like the moment where Sid accidentally gives that random food critic a plate that Carmen told her wasn't ready, another dish that was never supposed to be sent out. Then on top of all these comparisons, Adam snuck into the bear and tried the food. He claimed that there was a new scallop dish that he felt was new as in not Carmy. We see how much of her heart and soul Sydney's putting into the bear, but Carmy is still known as the genius behind everything, similar to Carmen designing the dish and then David saying to his face, you know, at the end of the day, it's my dish. When Chef Terry goes on ahead and puts like $1,000 worth of caviar on frozen pizza and Eggo waffles, making the most ratchet blinis in existence, Sid looks at that review from the Beef. A review that is her validation in terms of the potential that she has beyond the bear. And I feel like she did have that breakdown because it really seems like she is going to leave to work for Chef Adam. Because at first I was a little puzzled as to why we were spending so much time saying goodbye to a character who only appeared for like a scene. But then I was like, okay. It's actually a goodbye party for Sid. It also took me a little bit too long to realize that the restaurant was called Ever, and the title of the last episode of the season was Forever. Like, forever. Do you get it? The point is that Carmen is most likely losing Sid to Adam next season. Now, a lot of people have their reservations about Shapiro over here, and they say that he has potential of being somewhere near the sketchiness of Carmen's favorite human being, which brings us to the conspiracy of the Smudge. It all started when Adam said that he would talk to Carmy because he didn't want to come across like some gross poacher. And I was like, sounds reasonable. It sounds very reasonable, Adam. But then I realized Adam never checked in with Carmy. He was just relying on Sid to break the news. He never wanted to talk to Carmy about it. This is the moment I started thinking. I had to look closer. I had to make something bigger than it was. I had to blow everything out of proportion. In the episode Forks, also known as the modern day It's a Wonderful Life, we see Chef Adam during 4 weeks BO. So fairly recently, we see him enter the meeting complaining about the smudge. Oh my the smudge. How there was a plate with persimmon glaze that was smudged, which is an issue because the plate was going to a table of 4, meaning that they had to match together the other 3 plates to the smudge plate, costing the kitchen what was originally believed to be 45 seconds, but was actually 47 seconds. Adam asks, nor demands, that whoever did it, whatever staff member, should come clean about the smudge. But everyone remains silent, and we think that this room is full of a bunch of cowards. Then Adam has no choice but to direct all of his smudge anger towards Garrett. But did Garrett deserve the anger? I thought this was the end of the smudge. I thought it was over. But oh my trauma cannolis. I was wrong. In the episode Forever, Luca and Adam give each other grief. It's more of like a loving-hate relationship because they're pretty close from their time working under Chef Terry. And this means that Luca would have known Adam better than any of us. Well enough to make fun of him for stuff that he's always been messing up on. Which is why Luca goes like,
Getting your fingerprints on everything?
At first I was thinking that maybe the writers just needed to find a way to reference the Smudge line, a way to pay homage to the GOAT episode. I thought that, but then I rewatched the episode and I found this. Earlier in the episode when Adam says,
Keep your talking at a low volume.
if you pay close attention, you can hear a random chef in the room go like,
No smudges. No smudges. No smudges.
and catching that line, catching another reference to the Smudge, I thought maybe the writers are having a field day memeing this character into oblivion, but since Adam is such an integral part of the story, now that he's the main driving force behind Sid leaving Carmy, I don't know. Am I crazy for thinking there's more to the Smudge? Thinking that Adam was responsible for the Smudge, and instead of dealing with it himself, he places the blame on the rest of the staff and Garrett, implying that Adam could be far worse at taking the blame than someone like Carmen or Richie. Dude, what if Sid is walking into another David situation? Or maybe not. I don't know, but I have my eye on you, Adam. Thank you to the channel members for doing their usual shenanigans and supporting this channel, thus making the world a better place. You all are pretty phenomenal. And yeah, for everyone who's made it to the end of the video, let me know if you want to see me talk more about the bear, because I may.